Good evening and welcome to another episode of The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Perry.
And I'm your host, David. Tonight we're talking about Season 4, Episode 13, Crossfire. Before we continue, you can find us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast.
Absolutely. And as I say every single week, you should find us and follow us because we are awesome. We're a pretty good time. And despite anything else that's going on, technical difficulties aside, we actually enjoy doing this show. So, yeah, I hope you enjoy it with us and can suffer through our issues with us and take away something great from the show. So now, while we do mainly talk about Deep Space Nine, of course, we do try to branch in a bunch of other things, including our own little bits of personal development, personal time, whatever. So to that end, David, how was your week? So just to catch everybody up, we actually were not here last week. David was on vacation, and I was just, getting some other stuff together.
Yeah.
David, are you scratching papers?
Oh, sorry, I was flipping paper. I'm sorry you heard that. I was just fiddling with my hands.
No, it's all right. I mean, and we're live, so it's in there. It's in there
Yeah.
now.
Yep.
But yeah, how was your vacation? How did things go for you?
It was great. So, as people probably remember, we live in Austin. Perry and I are in Austin. And down in San Antonio, there's a SeaWorld. And so I won some SeaWorld tickets the past Christmas party. That's what I did at work. We had a Christmas party, and I made sure to win the tickets this year. The year before that, I put my tickets in. We would do a raffle, and I put most of my tickets in for the SeaWorld tickets for my niece, so I could take my niece and go there. But I put some of my tickets in for the TV, the big, massive 72-inch TV that they were also giving away. There were two of them they were giving away. And I was like, I'd be dumb not to try for it. So I tried, put some of mine in there, not expecting to win because, of course, everyone's going to put theirs in. And lo and behold, I won the TV. So that was last year. This year, got the SeaWorld tickets. So the idea was to bring my brother, his wife, and the two nieces along. One of them who's 5 and the other who's 2. The 2-year-old gets in free, of course. And of course, I got them back in December. I won them in December, and we finally scheduled. My parents also live in Austin. My sister flew down because now I can make a family thing of the trip. My parents rented an Airbnb for June, so it's summertime, but it's not yet July, August, where it's really hot, right? Well, what do you know? As you probably know, Perry, it got up to over 100 this week, a high to be exact. And
I was gonna say when he said
rough.
Not quite summer, I was like, no, it's pretty much summer. It's pretty much summer.
Well,
yeah. For those of you
exactly.
who don't
But
live in Texas, we
had
had this weird heat wave that hit us. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And unfortunately, that meant that the day of was just a hot day. Of course, the 2-year-old is not going to last very long. So my brother and my mom took the 2-year-old back to the house, which we got a house that was very close by, with the idea of maybe returning in the evening to do some other things, while the rest of us stayed with the 5-year-old and did a few more things. Now, I love my 5-year-old niece. She is just the greatest. She's the most adventurous kid you've ever met. She's already riding her bike with her training wheels, no training wheels. She loves, playing and all that. But she was a real trooper when it comes to rides. Like, she wanted to ride the big, scary-looking rides. Like, she would have gone on the steel eel if we had gone over there and they would have let her on. And that thing's, it's a big ride. It doesn't go upside down or anything, but, it's a pretty big ride. The main one we did that I know was like, okay, I knew she was adventurous, but like this really, really ratchets, confirms it. It's one of those big old boat rides where there's a big drop and then it hits the water and it splashes everything. Mm-hmm. She was all over that. She loved it. We got to the top, and right before we go down, she says, "All right, everybody, hold on." Like, she's a pro. Like, she already knows how to do this. She's done it a million times, as far as we all know. She is having a blast. After we got off of it, you get splashed by being on the boat, but you get better splashed if you're actually at the gate or
on the sides.
On the sides where the boat could splash everybody. And so she got splashed twice. We did the lazy river where you get wet because there's like a waterfall at the end, and she didn't get hit by the water. But I said before we got on, like, there's gonna be a waterfall at the end, so we're gonna get wet. And she's like, "Is the waterfall here yet? Is the waterfall here yet?" The whole time, waterfall. And unfortunately, she didn't get hit, but I did. My dad and my sister-in-law, we got hit pretty good. But yeah, unfortunately, the walk back out of the park was brutal because by that point it was like 3 in the afternoon, hottest part of the
Ooh, yeah.
day. Ugh, not fun. But we saw dolphins, we saw otters, we saw seals, we saw the orcas, we saw all the big shows with the animals. And unfortunately, she wasn't quite as into those as we would have hoped. Maybe sometimes kind of hard to see, but it was still fun to see the animals anyway. So
Well, that's good. That's good. I don't think I've ever been to SeaWorld, any SeaWorld.
yeah,
So I did go to the zoo. I think there's, is it Houston, I think, or San Antonio also. They've got their
I believe
zoo
they have
down
a
there.
zoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did go to that a couple of years ago. It was also incredibly hot. And, there's like absolutely no cover when you're walking, no shade, no nothing. I don't know who designs zoos and parks and like that. It's just like put a
Yeah.
canopy over your walkways because
And more
you're
fans.
dying.
When you get a
Yeah.
breeze, it feels actually nice because the breeze is just so nice. But if you're in a area where you're trying to stand around and there's not even a fan to blow you any cool air, whew, man. So it was a great time. We spent, we were there for 4 days. We only went to SeaWorld one of the 4 days. So the rest of it, we were just at the house playing games. Again, the girls loved to play, hide and go seek. And there was a Pac-Man video game system on a wall. So my 5-year-old was trying to learn to play Pac-Man, but unfortunately she doesn't have the reflexes just yet for a game like that. So yeah, it was a good time. Oh, there was a pool at the house we were at. So every single time she could, the 5-year-old was in the pool. And there was a slide with the pool. So we used that. So yeah, otherwise a great time. Oh, we played poker. The 6 adults, we all played poker, I think every night except maybe one night. And I won every night. So woohoo.
You got to be careful about that winning, tempting fate. You're winning all the trips, the TVs, and poker now.
Well, to
Yeah,
be
be
fair about the
careful.
tickets to the everyone wins a prize at our Christmas party, and the tickets to SeaWorld are actually one of the lower prizes. But yes, you're right. Well, the thing is my sister-in-law is the one who, for whatever reason, seems to always be best at poker whenever we get around to play it. And so the real challenge was taking my sister-in-law out. And I got her, in an all-in situation really early on the first night, and bam, she was gone. She had to buy back in. We weren't playing for real money, just for fun, but for reputation. So, but yeah, that was the last week. I did finish Tears of the Kingdom, the new Zelda game, which was a blast. I finally went and fought Ganondorf, the final boss. I do think Ganondorf was a bit of a pushover as the final boss compared to other things that happened in the game. He should have kicked my butt, but because I'm not very good at the combat.
Okay.
It's the one part of the game that I'm like, still need to work on my skills. But otherwise, great game, a lot of fun. And then, I was back at work. And of course, there's always something at work that, you're gone for several days. You come back and there's something you got to fix. So,
Right.
How about you? What were you up to these last few days?
Well, as much as I always try to make my weeks very simple, I always inevitably screw that up. So, this week was more technology screw ups for me. For those of you who can see us live, you may notice that I'm wearing a new headset right now, one that is sans microphone. I have an actual all impressive microphone setup now, which I had actually bought years ago, but then for whatever reason, I just wasn't using it. And I had this other set that I got that I had been using in most of our podcast. And I ended up breaking it completely on accident. I really don't actually understand how I did it, other than I remember taking it off and I was talking and I was holding on to it, and then I went to put it down and I think I just wasn't paying attention to how I placed it down. And you can't really see over here on this other side of me, but I have a lot of my stuff for work over here. And there's this weird like ledge where I've propped up a lot of like other materials and that I use for work. And I was gesturing wildly while I was talking and everything else. And I was just swinging this thing around, not paying any attention whatsoever, and went to put it down and completely just, just
Ripped
whacked
it
it.
out.
Just the whole microphone end on there, that whole part that comes down just snapped. And I was like, gonna need a new one. Gonna need a new one of those.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to explain that to get a new one, but it's no big deal. I mean, I've had it for a couple of years now. It was due to get new equipment anyway. Also, it was Father's Day, and then we kind of did Father's Week and all that. And to that end, to my Star Trek tie-in here, I got a great gift from Lynn, who some of you may remember. She was a guest co-host that we had on a couple episodes a few weeks back, or actually that was several months ago. I'm saying a few weeks. It was several months ago.
Well, she was a part of the part in between seasons 3 and season 4, but I think her episode we actually released after we'd started season 4, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Does that sound right?
No, it was earlier than that. It was definitely part of the season 3. We released it before we started season 3. That's
is that how far back?
Because
yes, okay.
Because she was also kind of our tie-in with the late great Nichelle Nichols when we did our tribute to her. So anyway, all that to say, Lynn got me a great gift for Father's Day. I'm going to give you a little teaser clue for those of you who can see right here. The infamous Cardassian symbol, all right,
okay,
leading up to the greatest bottle of all time. It's beautiful. This is a bottle of Kanar from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. This is a wonderful bottle, wonderful looking bottle here.
Yes.
As you can see, I've already sampled it. It wasn't just me. My family members also helped me to kind of break this in,
Nice.
Very dark red wine is what it is. Now, if you are familiar with Deep Space Nine, you'll know that Kanar, when it shows up, while there are a couple of different colors that it shows up in, the one thing that is always unmistakable about it is it's a very thick, viscous liquid. Okay. This is not that. Because I don't think they could do that. But the main thing about this that you're going for, of course, is the aesthetic of the bottle. Okay. And they painstakingly recreated these from the originals that they were able to salvage from the set. And then they found the company that originally made these and made more of them. So, so now I have my official collector's bottle anyway. And then, of course, you can drink it. You can put whatever wine in there you want, or if you're not a wine fan, you can put whatever you want in there. It's the bottle is the important part, and it's got this nice label here on it that is into it. It's like it's like painted on, so you're not going to just be able to peel that off or anything like that. And then it comes with 2 different stoppers. You have like a more traditional wine stopper, like the one that's in the bottle right now, and then of course you've got the other one that I showed earlier with the Cardassian symbol on the head. So.
Okay.
I have really enjoyed it, and it actually tastes pretty good. Like, I'm not much of a wine person, don't know that much about them, but this actually tasted really good to me. My sister, on the other hand, she knows way more about wine than I ever will. She also enjoyed it and was telling me some other stuff about it, which again, don't know much about wine, so she was just saying words. And I realized in that moment when she was telling me about it, I was like, this must be how I sound to her when I talk about like Star Trek and sci-fi stuff, right? Because, I was like, okay, that's great. Don't know what you said, but okay. So yeah, I'll be adding this bottle to my collection. I'm a growing collection here of from the Star Trek Spirits line. If you are interested in purchasing your own Star Trek Spirits, you can go to that site. That's what it's called, StarTrekSpirits.com. They've got a bunch. There's a bunch of wines. They do everything from a Federation standard wine to you can get the Picard collection of wines. There's Klingon blood wine and so forth. They've got the various whiskeys, Romulan ale. There's some vodkas ones and whatever. So there's just a bunch of stuff that's really cool to look at, and some of them not too bad to taste. Like I've had the Romulan ale as well, and it will It will knock you down. If you're not ready for it, it will definitely take you out. So I'm just kind of wanting to work my way through and get, an example of every one and then show that off. Other than that, between breaking stuff and finding other ways to make things work, and then drinking, obviously, I did finally make it all the way through Mass Effect 2. So now I'm on to the final installment, Mass Effect 3. And let me tell you something. Mass Effect 2 is so much better than Mass Effect 1. And so I'm really looking forward to like going back through Mass Effect 3 now and making all these different choices. Now, I did pick, for those of you who are Mass Effect fans, I did pick the Paragon route in the game this time. Most of the time when I played it, I found like I was more middle ground on things. But after doing some reading and everything else, I really wanted to nail the Paragon ending, which that was the other reason why I went all the way back to the first game, because you have to do it a certain way in order all the way through, or else it won't work. So that's where I'm at. And so far, I'm batting 1,000. Now here comes the third game. Let's see if I can nail the Paragon ending at the end of the series. So I'll give you that update. I also was in the James Corey series, The Expanse. I'm in the 4th book now, and I'm digging it. So we're gonna have our own, we'll after dark about that later. But trying to get there, trying to catch up on all things. Oh, last but not least, Strange New Worlds is out. Season 2 is out, and I don't care what anybody says. The second episode of the second season was probably the best episode of Star Trek I've seen in the longest time. Like, I know what I said about the ending of Picard, but when we're talking, but that was an ending. That was a series finale. It was supposed to be special. This, on the other hand, it felt like a classic TNG episode. Like, the writing was great. The acting was great. The points they were making, just great. It felt like it was one of those ultimate, kind of Jean-Luc Picard conscious heavy episodes, where he's got to do his moral analyzing and so forth. It was like that, but without him and without the TNG crew. I feel like it was beautifully done. The sets looked great. Costuming was fantastic. I just loved it. And the crazy thing to me about that episode was, before it aired, I said to myself, I've noticed I've gotten into a habit of really kind of defending all of the Star Trek shows. And I felt like I wanted to make myself like be more objective and be a bit more discerning when watching it, so that I can not just be totally fanboy and gushing over the episode. So I was like, what, I'm going to, try to hold back. I want to reserve and kind of like really just pay attention to, the overall effect of the episode. And having that mindset going into watching it, it still blew me away. It was just great. So even if you haven't seen anything of Strange New Worlds, I would highly encourage you to go and watch that episode. It's a great episode. And Strange New Worlds is just, they're doing a lot of things right with Star Trek right now, which is sad in the sense of, as popular as that show is and other Trek shows are, unfortunately, there was news has broken that certain shows are on the chop block, one of them being Star Trek Prodigy. That was the show that was obviously a Paramount show, but it was on Nickelodeon. It was geared towards younger children, and apparently they are, it's going to be canceled after the second season. So I'm not sure why. There hasn't really been a concrete explanation as to why. There's been talk of them wanting to just kind of get it off of the Paramount platform and then be able to sell it elsewhere. Whether or not it gets picked up and renewed elsewhere is a possibility, but even that's kind of like a little bit of a rumor. All we know for sure is that after season 2, there will be no more Prodigy as it stands right now. That could change, but the official announcement was it was canceled. With Discovery season, the final season also coming out here soon, and then that being it for Discovery, that's 2 Star Trek shows that are canceled. There has been talk of now not doing the Section 31 show, but now doing it a Section 31 movie. Not really sure that's going to take off, mainly because, again, Michelle Yeoh is the kind of focal point of that, and she's incredibly busy right now. I just don't see her having the ability to kind of like step in and do it. Maybe that's why they're trying to do a movie instead, because the movie would be easier for her schedule than trying to commit to doing, several episodes, several seasons of a show. So,
Right.
but yeah, then there's also the talk of the Starfleet Academy show that has, while it's been reported as being greenlit, there's been no production on it. There's been no announcing of any kind of cast. There's been no movement on that whatsoever. So really, the only thing holding us down right now until we get new stuff is Strange New Worlds. And we're already 2 episodes into a 10-episode season. So there's going to come a time. There's a void ahead, fans. So don't worry. The old stuff is still here. Deep Space Nine will still welcome you. But we're not here to talk about all those other things. We're here to talk about Deep Space Nine, and we're talking about the episode Crossfire, the 92nd episode, right? Yes.
Our 92nd?
Yes.
Probably.
Our 92nd episode. That is correct. I know
Okay.
I know that's the right number. This is our 92nd episode. So we've got 8 more, and then we're going to hit the big triple digits. So
yeah.
Now, did you want to give a recap on this one, or did you want me to do it?
I mean, Odo's your man. This is an Odo-centric episode.
So
Go for
the sake of time and brevity, I will sum this up the best way I know how. I'm giving you the high points, which is basically, in this episode, Odo not only doesn't catch the bad guy, he also gets friend zoned. That's it. There's your recap.
That's by Kira, to be clear.
Yes. He's friend zoned by Kira. Yes. So now to be a little bit more lengthy here, Shakar, who's now the prime minister, who we met in several of the episodes, comes to the station. He's going to be giving some speeches and he's basically trying to speed up the timetable for Bajor being inducted into the Federation. Starfleet is basically like, look, we got a process for this. Well, you're no different from the countless other planets that we've done this with. You're not special. And he's like, yeah, no, but we are. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, Odo becomes aware of a plot to kill Shakar, to assassinate him. And so they put the whole station on high alert to make sure that this doesn't happen. Meanwhile, he's also having his various meetings with Kira, and it's becoming very clear that he has an affection towards Kira. He's got an attraction towards her. So much so that even Quark notices that there's some extra there between him and Kira. Kira obviously has a special connection to Adon Shakar, the prime minister. As they spend more and more time together, they become closer and closer, up to the point that they finally spend the evening together and become an item. During all this, Odo gets distraught. He, at one point, loses focus, which ends in a near fatal assassination attempt for him, Kira, and Shakar in the turbolift. And Worf is the one who ultimately ends up capturing the would-be assassin. Odo really has nothing to do with it because he was distracted by his feelings for Kira. And recognizing that he has these feelings for her and recognizing that she does not reciprocate his feelings, he basically decides to kind of like shut himself down a bit and kind of return to this essential distilled Odo out of all of this kind of inner turmoil. Kira is now with Shakar. Odo is alone and sans belt, and Quark has soundproof flooring installed in his roof. So there you go. That's essentially the episode.
Man, that was quick.
Yeah.
Recap.
I will say that I did not like this episode, and we will get into that later, but that's just me. What did you think of this episode, David?
I liked it overall. I liked having a very character-focused episode. Back, people will remember when we first started this whole Fire Capes thing. I said I really like character-driven episodes, character-centric episodes. I think those were great on TNG, and so this is definitely one where Odo obviously is the main focus, heavily the main focus. This is not a story where we're following plot, we're following character. The best example of that is that at the episode, Quark says to Odo, I think that Shakar is about to reveal that the Federation has agreed to the shortened timeline, and he's about to announce that. But the episode ends before we hear that announcement. If this was a plot-driven episode, that would have been the climax of the storytelling. he got what he wanted. Just Shakar, that is, Shakar gets what he wants. They're going to be in the Federation faster or not, whatever. But instead, because it's an Odo-focused episode, the last moment we see is of him walking away when Shakar and Kira come out of the Hollow Suite after they practiced his speech. So I like that, and I like Shakar, as we said when Shakar was first introduced. I wanted him to be the romantic interest for Kira. I think he's a better fit than what's his face ever was, Bareil.
Vedic Bareil.
I couldn't think of it for a second. However, I do have some critiques about Kira and Shakar. I can save those for the moment, but for the moment, I'd say I like it as a character-specific episode. It's very interested in, and we're diving deep with Odo this time, and not as a changeling. This is not about him as a changeling. This is about him as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. We really see Odo come to a pretty low point. I mean, he at the end is just he destroys his own quarters because he's so distraught over his own behavior. He can't confront his feelings for Kira directly with her because he knows that she's already in a relationship with someone else. It's a strange thing for him to breach. You know, he's not the same race as she is, completely different in all kinds of ways. And does it ruin his relationship with Kira? And it's all of the same questions that Shakar asks Odo to help him solve with Kira, because he says the same thing. Would this ruin our relationship? Would it be too much? Or we're already friends.
We've been friends. I value her friendship. I don't want to lose the friendship. Maybe I shouldn't say anything. Maybe I should be patient and wait, which is kind of, we're seeing the parallel between Shakar and Odo here, making both of them in a weird way, making them both very relatable, not just to each other, but to us, because we realize these two individuals are sharing the same kind of thoughts. And Odo even says, you know, when he says, maybe I should be patient and wait and see. And Odo says, that's what I would do, which we know, because we've been watching Odo, we know that is what he's been doing. And then when Adon decides to go the other way, and decides to strike out and say, on the other hand, maybe make a move, take a bold gesture. And it turns out to be the right thing to do, which leads Odo down that path of devastation even more. It's not that this is a bad episode. My reasons for disliking this episode stem entirely from the fact that I like Odo as a character so much. And I didn't like seeing him. I didn't like seeing him
suffer, struggle,
lose out. Like he doesn't even come out on top in the investigation. You know, he's so distracted. Worf is the one who ends up making the arrest. You know, And if anything, I really love that moment in particular, because that's what kind of, you know, we always use the phrase, the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? I feel like that was the breaking point for Odo, because he was already distraught about Kira when he came into his office and saw Worf standing there with this alien who was being arrested, and he was completely blindsided. He had no idea any of this was going on. And then he left his office and went to his quarters where he was fuming. And it was just like, not only did he not get the girl, he also didn't get the bad guy. And then he just starts going on a rampage, which also leads me to a side question. Just how strong is Odo? Because he smashed all that stuff up pretty easily. Now, I mean, yes, we can say, you know, special effects and it's all plaster and whatever else, blah, blah, blah. But again, in universe, nah.
That's a good question. Yeah, when he breaks whatever that sculpture is in the middle of the room.
The shape-shifting sculpture with all the arches, and he just smashes right through it. It's like, Jesus Christ.
It was like some piece of flimsy wood. Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't really give it much thought until you said it just now, but that's a great question, because he smashes the computer console.
Like, two nice punches and it's done. And then he breaks a bunch of, you know, crystal stuff that he's got. But also earlier in the episode, when the turbolift fails, we see him change and push out on the walls of the turbolift and slow it down and eventually stop it.
Right.
So he's got to be able to exert a lot of force to do this. So, I
Right.
mean, I don't think anybody's ever really quantified how strong the changeling is, but I mean, based upon these demonstrations here, I mean, they have to be pretty strong. They must be
Right.
able to generate considerable power to do
Right.
what they do.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, he stops the turbo lift falling. He makes like metal. I think
You know,
they
like
called it
steel
pylons.
pistons or something. Yes,
Yeah,
and
and
he pushes through the metal of the turbolift
pylon,
walls
turbo
and
lift. Yeah,
lets
yeah,
it scrape and break
right.
finally. You know,
Yes. Um, yeah. So yeah, and of course, right before Worf is the one who finds the culprit, but earlier, right before all that happens, after the assassination attempt, Cisco is giving Odo a talking to, like, hey, you failed at your job, like this is not
after
acceptable.
after the assassination attempt, because he
Right.
says, you know, there's a saying that to err is human, but
You're
you're
not
not
human.
human. You're not even humanoid.
Right.
And I've never known you to make a mistake. So
Right.
what's up? You know?
Yes. And he said it's
Um,
personal, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah. And he and but it never happened again. And Cisco says, like, that's all I need to hear.
that's all I need to hear.
Yeah, like Cisco is very forgiving in this moment, and we know that's the kind of guy Cisco is. We know he trusts Odo. We know that he's not the type to hold a grudge. He's not the type to punish someone irresponsibly or punitively without a proper
Hmm.
recourse. And he's very quick to see the to let someone redeem himself, if you will. Like,
Yes.
I made a mistake. I'm going to not do that again. Great. That's all I need to hear. We're going to move forward. But that's why it's also so poignant when he kind of does fail again. He does let his attention of Kira drag him back to Kira's quarters, and he relieves an instant so he can stand outside her quarters all night long. And
I'm sorry.
Worf's like,
That's got to be the worst thing I've ever heard. Like that was one of the moments too that I just did not like.
yeah,
He relieves this guy. The guy tells him, you know, they came back to her quarters. They've been in her quarters for the past 3 hours. He
right,
relieves the guy and says he's going to take the rest of his shift. So he's going to stand outside of Major Kira's quarters until Shakar leaves, and then we see that Shakar doesn't leave until the next morning. So
right,
he's, you know, so you're just sitting outside the woman that you are, you know, infatuated with, in love with, whatever you want to say, for hours, for hours.
well, and
Really?
remember that Odo needs to regenerate, go into his bucket after however many hours. Like, did he
It's
push
16
it?
hours.
Did he
It
push
Yeah.
his limit? We didn't get that question answered for us. At the beginning of the episode, we saw how dutifully he prepared the room for Kira to show up with her rock to Gino, and how he really enjoyed seeing her enjoy the rock to Gino, and how he was devastated when she came in after having had breakfast with Shakar, of like, oh, I already had my rock to Gino with him. Yeah, it's again, I think it's a good episode because it focuses on Odo, and it's again not about his changeling abilities. We're not focusing on that. I like Shakar as a character. I've liked him in the past. We have the love triangle element, which is a classic storytelling trope. Cisco
Yes.
responds nicely. Worf, he bonds with Worf early on. Neither of
Oh,
them like
that was
having.
funny. That was funny.
Yeah,
Neither of them want company. Everything in their quarters arranged just so that with their eyes closed, they know where everything is. I couldn't do that. I might be able to I know generally where things are, but there's no way
right,
I'd be able to navigate my place with my eyes closed. I would definitely be
right,
stubbing toes and so forth.
exactly,
No, no. But
right. But
yeah, that was a
it
great scene.
it is a great scene, but also it's very poignant when Worf is trying to talk to Odo, and Odo is distracted, and Worf kind of gets mad at him, like, "What are you doing? Like,
Hmm.
you are clearly not paying attention." Like, and then Odo says, "I'll follow my leads, you follow yours." Like, Odo is burning some bridges here, man. It's things are not going well for him in this episode.
You know,
So yeah, it's
to that
he does
to
bond
that
with
end,
Quark a bit.
yeah, to that I would say he didn't necessarily burn a bridge with Worf because Worf is a naturally gruff person himself.
Right.
So I don't think that's what his abrupt demeanor. I don't think that was what would have upset Worf. I think Worf was more upset about him not paying attention and not doing his
Yes.
job than anything else.
Right.
Because we all know Worf is very duty oriented. Um,
Right.
Surprising character development and great moments. Quark and Odo. Um, all of their scenes together were fun, right? It was almost
Yes.
like a friendship between the two of them. You know, when
Yeah.
Odo confiscates the Ferengi listening device that
Listen.
was in the plants, and he, oh, sorry, Butterfingers, drops it in the thing. Classic, almost like a younger brother, older brother vibe, teasing him. That was I really did enjoy that
I
particular
have
scene.
I have to say, when Quark reached his hand into that punch bowl and grabbed it out, I was like, that man did
He's
not
always
just.
putting his hands in people's food and drink. It's the most disgusting thing that he does. The number of times I have watched him dip his pinky into a drink, into a sauce, into a cream, and not only lick it himself, but also offer his
Go back in for
finger.
a sec.
No, offer his
Oh,
finger to someone else to taste. Let's look at this delicious frosting. Here, have a taste off the end of my grubby finger. I don't know how they were like, get away from me. Like, get away.
exactly. Right. Yeah. Oh man, Quark is hilarious. But yeah, the part we haven't mentioned yet is that Odo, at some point, I mean, I don't know if it's been forever or if it's just recently that they did this, but Odo has his quarters above Quark's, and that gives him a perfect chance to listen in on Quark. But it also means that Quark is overhearing all of the shape shifting he's doing when he's
Yeah.
practicing his shape shifting, including turning into a rhino at one
Mhm.
point, apparently. So, wow, okay. Um,
So yeah,
but
it's
when he
not really
goes to this,
discussed. I just wanted to clarify that for you real quick because it's not really discussed. But basically, what we're seeing here is the evolution of the character of Oda. We know that originally, whenever he needed to
uh-huh.
revert to his liquid state, he would do so in his little bucket that he kept in his office. He didn't have quarters on the
Right,
station, he was
yeah,
always in his office. But now, after meeting his people, learning about other changelings, learning about kind of the changeling culture and being more open about being a changeling and shape shifting and so forth, Odo has now petitioned to have quarters, and
right,
he doesn't need to revert to a liquid state and just chill in a bucket for a few hours or whatever. Now he just needs to no longer hold his humanoid form, and he can shape shift and change into
oh,
whatever it is. He doesn't just need to be goo for a while. He just needs to not be the solid form that he's been holding for, because it's all like, I guess, like flexing a muscle. And you can hold the muscle for so long, and then you gotta
right,
you gotta relax. You let it go. And so that's what he does in his quarters. That's why he's got all the stuff in there to practice shape shifting and moving and everything else. And then he
right,
can go about being Odo the humanoid again.
right, yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, he's just having to switch from his current form. Doesn't have to be goo, but something.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That could explain how he may have held his shape longer outside of Kira's
Mm-hmm.
quarters.
Because he could have
Maybe.
just turned into something really quick while he was outside of recorders or for a while. He could have
Right.
been a bit of deck plating. He could have been the carpet. He could have, I don't know, he could have just done other stuff and
Right.
then just been there.
Right. Exactly. Um, so the part of the episode I do want to critique is Kira in particular in her relationship with Shakar.
Okay.
I like Shakar. Like him a lot better than Vedic Barile. However, I do feel some of the same problems that Vedic Barile has seeping into Shakar's character. When he goes to Odo and he's all, you know, shy and mild about his attraction to Kira. I mean, it worked for the episode because they were focusing on Odo and it put a fine point on Odo's feelings. But I feel like the shadow of Vedic Barile was on the scene. Like, that's how Vedic Barile might have gone about it. Like, do you think that she would be willing to have a relationship with me? Like, too tiptoey. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I like the fact that Shakar was a man of action, not a overbearing man of action, but a man of action. Um, but he is a little bit soft spoken. And again, let me put it this way: I get a lot of similar vibes to Vedic Barile, or at least some overtures. And then Kira is also the same way, because when she talks to Odo and she's like, "Oh, if you had asked me a year ago if Shakar and I would have been a good couple, I would have said there's no way." And I feel like she would have said the same thing about Vedic Barile. Like, she was more enamored with the position he had, like who he was, not who they were as a couple, as two people who were in love or in a relationship. So I hope it changes. I like, again, Shakar more than Barile, so I want to see the relationship continue. I'm sorry for Odo, but for the moment, I like Shakar. There's that awkward problem of how do you date someone who's in a high position of authority, who is also at the same time on the planet. Like, how do you do that long distance authority figure type situation? But whatever, maybe we'll find out more. I do like that Shakar went for it and it was successful. Again, I think that makes sense. I like that. I just don't want it to turn into Vedic Barile 2.0, because I didn't care for the Vedic Barile
Yeah.
situation. I want Shakar to be a man of action still.
Yes.
I want
I
him
knew
to,
you were going to say. I knew you were going to say man of action.
yeah,
I could feel it.
I want him to still be. I mean, when he was walking around the station and shaking people's hands, great. I think a political leader should do that. But Vedic Barile would have done the same thing. I wasn't clear about how he's different from Vedic Barile in those moments.
Yeah.
Not that they can't be similar. Obviously, I don't want. It's kind of hard to say sometimes, but just the overtones felt similar.
Yeah.
So that's
No,
what I'm getting.
I agree, because when we're first introduced to Shakar, he's a very dynamic individual.
Right.
He is this former rebel resistance fighter who's, back to fighting once again, trying to eke out his living in this harsh environment on Bajor. And now he's going up against Kai Wynn and all this stuff, and he's winning.
Right.
And he's kind of soft spoken and understated, but he's effective. He's a leader,
Right.
and obviously as a fighter. And so we like him this way.
Right.
Now we're seeing him as this, politician. He's the prime minister. He's kind of an ambassador of sorts, because he's representing all of Bajor to the Federation board that's going to decide membership. So
Right.
all of these other races are judging the entirety of the Bajoran people based off of him as their elected official. So
Right.
yes, he is toned down. He's softer. His adjutant, or whatever the guy's name is, his chief of staff,
Right.
who's kind of flittering about, it. I get what they were trying to do and trying to invoke like a different tone with him, a more stately tone.
Right.
But considering what we had seen of him before, and especially what we had known of other Bajoran fighters like Tana Los, the Konma refugee fighter, I think it was too much of a change. I think I would have enjoyed seeing some more scenes where Adon was struggling with being the stately individual, right?
Right.
Not so tired and resigned to it, but now he's putting up a different kind of fight, being the kind of, this is who I used to be. This is what I'm comfortable with. They're going to have to adjust to me, which is kind of how we saw Kira in the beginning too. She was very fiery, and she was, in Sisko's face about things and not letting up. And you kind of had to watch Sisko earn her softness,
respect.
right,
Oh, yeah.
and earn that compassion, and we don't really get to see that with Shakar, which is a bit of a loss. But again, he's not the focal point of the episode. I think this would have worked better, and we say it a lot, would have worked better as a two-parter, but one of those ones where instead of it being, again, Crossfire Part 1, Crossfire Part 2, but maybe like earlier on in the season, we had seen an episode where we were watching Shakar kind of struggle with this, and Kira having to coach him to a degree, and maybe even an unexpected relationship, friendship blooming between him and Cisco, and Cisco kind of giving him some pointers on, because Cisco's had to step into a new role as well. He's
Right.
going from, commander to emissary and so forth. I mean, we never see Shakar and Cisco interact with each other.
Other than the
So
opening when they come to
yeah,
the station, yeah.
so it's a very brief thing. So like to have that, I think at some point, and then do the intermittent episodes, whatever, and then to come back to that when we're
Right.
talking about admittance into the Federation, and everything else. I think that would have helped this story, give it a bit more depth, and
Right.
then you could still do the Odo focus of the story, but then we wouldn't have minded so much the lack of Shakar in this one because we saw him earlier.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. What you were saying just now really put it home for me. You said stately figure, I think is the phrase you used.
Yeah.
Benedict Bareil was used to being a stately figure. The hands folded, the calm, the advisor, the man who's asked questions and gives calm responses, who is a spiritual leader.
Was annoying. He was annoying.
Yeah. And Shakar in this episode seems to have acclimated to that same type of stately position too quickly. And the point where he says to Odo, "Oh man, I'm starting to think that being the prime minister is harder than being a military leader ever was." Ha ha ha. That's kind of funny, but it was delivered too dryly. Is that the right word? It's
yeah, and I mean it comes off feeling a bit contrived, a bit stagnant.
It was a forced moment.
It's one of those things. Like I honestly feel like we could probably find examples of that kind of dialogue about the previous job being the easy job, right? I think we could probably find that in multiple examples in TV and movies and whatever else.
Right.
Oh, I'm an admiral now, but I remember when I was the major, and that was much better than this and whatever.
Right.
No one believes it. Like no one ever believes it.
It's a cliche, even outside of Star Trek, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah. I don't like it for that. Yeah,
yeah. The moment felt forced from the character and from the storytelling perspective. And I understood what it was trying to do, was trying to say this is a hard job and trying to negotiate with the Federation. But because all of that is back, is the scenes happening behind what we're watching, we're focusing on Odo and what he's experiencing, which is not about the Federation negotiations. Those moments come off as flat, especially because we're not really seeing how are the negotiations going. Are they really that hard? We don't really get insight into that. And so I feel like the Shakar, the Shakar relationship with
Kira,
goodness gracious, was a bit. I think it had to suffer a bit to make room for Odo. So yes, a two-part episode might have worked there for that reason.
And I think, and another reason why I think that a two-parter would have been better, and again, not back to back, but like. I understand why, they did the episodes they did for the opener of season 4 to get warp and everything else. But if they had done this to where like this was the first part and we saw Kira maybe having to go to Bajor to meet with Shakar to help him and prep him, and then to watch their relationship kind of change. Because even Kira says it. She's like, there's no mystery here. He's seen me when I haven't showered for a week. We've huddled together for warmth. We fought. We've done this. We've done that. Like, to see this sudden switch, and it seems like it's just been a matter of days, it also kind of rings as false here. But if we had seen this as like something that was at least started, let's say a couple of weeks ago, right, for the sake of timeline, if it was started elsewhere and then, kind of mentioned throughout other episodes where she talks about, oh, she went back to Bajor and she's met with Shakar and, oh, he surprised me. He came to the station and did this, or, little things that kind of indicated that their relationship was slowly changing. And then for the final crux of the change to happen on the station under this threat of the assassination would have played out. Yeah, would have played out better for everybody. Better for Odo, better for her, better for Shakar.
Yeah, maybe. I do like that it's all within this one episode that Shakar and Kira get together, in the sense that again, the man of action perspective, because I feel again like the slow burn would have been a more Vedic Burial type way of doing it. I like the fact that he goes for it. I just wish
Uh-huh.
that the character had come off more as, all right, I'm the prime minister, I'm taking this role on and I'm going for it, or man, I took this role on in kind of the spur of the moment and it is a lot and I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Something.
Or I guess because I've watched a lot of political dramas and I've seen that both of those play out. I
Right.
think I would have liked something that was been more of a I took on this role with the intention to do it my way, and I'm gonna do it my way.
Yeah.
And then to watch everybody kind of have to like figure out how to do things.
Like a great way of
Yeah.
doing it is like for the last 4 years I have watched and I have seen the political leadership of the Bajoran people struggle to make headway in important ways in the aftermath of the Cardassian invasion, blah blah blah. We have struggled, we've had coups, we've had problems. I am getting this in order and I'm going to make it happen, and I need the Federation to back me up, that they are ready and willing to say that we are a culture that can join and that they can expedite the process and like be there. Like a great,
Yeah.
I think a lot of this would have been solved. Like that moment where he's walking in the promenade, shaking hands, going to the temple to pray. If he had given some sort of impromptu speech, something like, I am very happy to go to the Federation and really fight for us to join. They have been here on the station for the last several years, and our relationship with them has been solid. We've worked together.
I'm,
Something, yeah,
I'm going to agree with you mainly because there's a thing that Kira says when Adon is coming to the station, and she says, "I hope he's gotten better at public speaking. He used to mumble through
yeah,
mission briefings." So if he had gone and and so our expectation would be this guy, and even his chief of staff is like, tell people this, tell people that, and remember, enunciate, speak. Like
yes,
he's telling him the same thing.
right,
So then to have him like stop and give an impromptu, passionate speech about
right,
the changes that he's making and why he's making them and why he so fervently believes in the job that he's doing, and to deliver a speech like that and deliver it well, I
right,
think that also would have been like, wow, okay,
right,
he's still the Shakar that I like. He is the leader. He's the passionate man of action. But now he's stepping into this new role. He's embracing it fully, and he's bringing his traits into the role, not grudgingly, painstakingly pulling himself along to do it. I agree with you. He should have given a speech and nailed it. Just drove it home. I'm talking 100% West Wing Jed Bartlett that thing, and just
yeah,
give me a
yeah,
great speech
exactly. Give me a
and
Jed Bartlett
surprise me.
moment. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I just, yeah, I felt like Shakar. I've said it already. I felt like Shakar wasn't quite giving the oomph that I want for
yeah,
him as a leader, and to really drive home why he is a better romantic partner than Vedic Brile was to Kira. And even
yeah.
maybe better than Odo. I mean, if part of the episode is that frankly Odo, because of who he is, he's just not the type.
Oh,
Unfortunately, that might be something that Odo. I mean, there's still plenty of show left to work through. Still
yeah.
not even at the
I
halfway
mean,
point, but
I think that's also kind of the point of the episode too, is to show that while Odo has changed a lot, there's still a lot of growth that he needs to have.
right,
He had this kind of notion of what a relationship would be and how to make it so. And it's through watching Kira with Shakar that he realizes a lot of what he was doing was, just inadequate. He's fixing his office just so he's got her coffee ready and positioned so she can come right in and grab it and they can start their meeting. And he's delighted when these things happen, when she ticks the box. She
right,
comes in, she sits down, he's got her chair positioned just right. He's got all
right,
these things ready to go for her. And he's delighted. Like we saw
right,
him, his face lights up, the smile, all of it. He's even watching as she takes a sip of the Rakachino. Is she enjoying it? Like, and he's so happy when she ticks off those things. That to me does not speak romantic love. That's more like watching your pet perform. And she did the things, and then that also kind of to me leans into the question, or not the question,
oh,
but the statement that he made about control and order and find order where you can. And that's exactly what he's done. He has ordered a perfect scenario for himself that he can get enjoyment from. And he's getting a lot of enjoyment from it. I don't think he knows how to really have a relationship because, as far as we know, he's never really had a romantic relationship with anyone at this point. So, yeah, there's a lot of growth for him that he still needs to have before I feel like he will be ready to be the kind of partner that Kira would want and respect.
Right. Yeah, and that's really my point. Is I like the idea of Odo realizing that, for example, romantic relationships are humanoids' version of the what is it when
The Great Link.
The Great Link. That's it. When the Great Link is all of the changelings, humanoids don't have that, but they have a miniature version of it, which is relationships. And so he could maybe experience something like that. He has that real deep desire to join the Great Link. He thought maybe Kira, who had been with him when he went to that changeling's home planet, maybe with Kira he could find a small version of that. She's the only person he feels he could ever really truly share that with, and he feels like he's lost that chance. I wish he would express something like that. I don't know, maybe in the future, maybe that's how the character will express it. I hope so. That's just me predicting something there. Yeah. So yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Odo's his issue is definitely expression. He does not do it well, and that kind of intensely introverted nature is ultimately his downfall here. He's so kind of closed off from expressing himself with her and really kind of with anyone. That it's obviously leading to kind of this stunted understanding of relationships and also what he needs. And it's now, once he kind of has that devastated breakdown moment, he's in his quarters, everything's broken, his hair in front of his face.
Yeah.
Interesting thing about that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, he's having this broken down moment here. It's only then that he realizes that what he had with Kira was truly not enough. And it wasn't just the fascination or the infatuation or anything like that. It was like what Quark says when he's looking at him. He's like, you really were in love with her. Because it became more. It was less that object of infatuation, that there was something else that was missing in his life that he wanted with her and now seemed completely out of reach.
Right. There's a scene in the most recent episode of Silo. I'm up to episode 6, though this upcoming week, the finale of season 1's coming out. So I'm looking forward to that. 10 episodes. It's a great show so far. Again, Silo on Apple Plus or Apple, whatever they call it. There's a moment where the main character is talking with her lover, boyfriend, and she says to him, I like seeing you happy. It makes me happy to see you happy, basically. And that's really how I feel Odo was in that opening scene with that, with the Raktajino and all that. So I think I watched.
Oh, that was your take on it, was that he was happy seeing her happy.
Right. And I'm trying to remember which I watched first. I watched this episode first, or I watched that first. I think I watched this episode first, and then I watched Silo last night afterwards. So anyway, but yeah, it's I feel for Odo. I mean, when I was talking, I think it was last time, about how if the changelings were trying to experience individuality, but they're the type who also, like to mimic things, what does it mean for Odo to be an individual? Like this really kind of nails it home. Like Odo has been he's not like he had no definitive character or anything, but
no,
we learn a lot more about him as an individual in this episode, and I like that a lot. I like episodes like that. Again, it really sucks because this is kind of a bad episode. I will give it to you.
Yeah, I mean, I will give it to you. We learn a lot about Odo, but my objections to this episode are that a lot of the things that make you kind of like him in the first place are all diminished behind this kind of love struck, love sick individual.
Okay.
And I guess
Good point.
that to me is another cliche that love weakens us all.
Mm.
We see this a lot, and I've never enjoyed it. I don't understand why that would be. Like
Yeah, that's a good point.
it's and I mean it's not even a weakness of like a mental lapse or one off or whatever. It's like they completely forget who they are. He almost gets
Yeah.
them killed because of his distraction. He's
Right.
also not listening to Worf, who's giving him valuable information, as another
Yes.
form of distraction. He's
Right.
he's rougher than normal with his personal belongings, with other people around him, all because he's experiencing these romantic feelings. And
Good
I
point.
just didn't like it.
Yeah.
He's always been in control. He's always been kind of in the know and the guy who's got kind of like the last, trick up his sleeve, whatever, in
Right.
most of the situations. It's very hard to get the upper hand on Odo. And yet, all of a sudden, he is laid bare by this notion of love. And I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
I like Odo. I like the character development. I like when you can kind of remove that aspect of the story and just focus on the fact that this is about his growth. This is showing us that there is still a lot of growth for this character that
Right.
needs to occur. Then
Right.
yes, I will 100% agree with that, and I can enjoy this episode. But when you want me to focus
Right.
on this character who I have grown to appreciate for being clever, for being thorough, for being supportive, for being kind of this wall, right, of
Right.
unfailing ability, and you take
Right.
all that away for no reason,
Right.
that's where I'm
Right.
like, you know what, I don't
Yeah,
really enjoy this.
that's a good point. Yeah, Odo is. I mean, he is really, really, really affected by this whole thing. He does it. He gives the code too quick. He doesn't go after the villain or the perp. He, yeah, he like loses
Even
himself in this episode.
even the hair comes undone, which Odo is a simulated person. He is a
Right?
shapeshifter.
How does that even
So
happen?
how
Right?
did the hair come undone? So now the thought is that he is so out of sorts by all of this stuff that his normal ability to control himself and present his appearance is off. And
Right.
that's why the hair is out of place. But I mean, while I like that, I kind of like that detail. It also just screams to me like, again, you were made weak. The thing that you've literally been practicing for an unknown number of decades. We don't know how long you've been, doing all this. All of a sudden you can't do it as effectively anymore. Like that,
Right.
shouldn't that be like the equivalent of muscle memory, almost like
Right.
instinctual, assuming that shape? So it
And
should never be really off.
right. And wouldn't it be more natural for Odo to more lean into his detective, find the perp sort of personality as opposed to lose it over the course of like a
Right.
24-hour period? And like
How many times
just
have we?
how
Yeah.
many
How
times
many?
has he just sat outside a room pining over a woman? This is
Right.
the first time. Now, on one level, it's like, okay, we're seeing a new side of Odo. Okay. The other side is, as I think you're pointing out, and why you don't like the episode, is it undermines who Odo has been all this time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like when they kind of make characters that they make hints at them being multifaceted, and then they screw it all up by saying, nope, they're the one or the other. That's it. We teased
Right.
you, but
Right.
we lied. So
Yeah. It would
yeah.
almost make more sense when he found out about the ensign being outside the quarters for him to like at that moment, instead of letting Worf go find the guy and him being there all night long, like at that moment he goes detective hard.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely, I agree. He
right,
should have rounded the corner because we knew then he was going to see Kira, and in
right,
our heads we were thinking, oh great, he's finally going to do it. He's going to summon up the courage. He's going to go and confront her. He's going to tell her how he feels, and we're going to see the fallout. That's great. And then
right,
he rounds the corner. The guy's standing there. He finds out why. He's devastated all over again. But instead of shutting down and standing there like a pillar, he
Right.
says, all right, then the other thing, I'll do the other thing. If I can't
Right.
be in love, I can be the detective. And he
Right.
goes and he gets his man. That's how
Yeah.
that should have ended. That's
Yeah. And
absolutely how that should have ended.
I won't let Cisco be disappointed in me. If I can't
Yes.
have Kira, I certainly can't let
I
Cisco
can at
down.
least do my job, right? If I can't have
Or
her, I can at least have my job.
or maybe he goes to Worf and we get a more bonding moment between the two of them where Worf is like got a good lead. Like, I'll follow my lead, you follow yours. And he's like, you know what? My lead didn't pan out. Worf, what do you have? And Worf's like, I got a great one. And they go and they figure it out.
Yeah. And then like
Yeah.
it comes down to, Worf has kind of cornered the bad guy, but it takes Odo's knowledge of the station, his unique, morphing ability, and just, getting the job done
Right.
that secures the arrest. So a nice
Yeah.
team effort between him and Worf to get it done. That would have been great too.
What I would have done if I were to fix this episode is instead of getting the instant to go away, that's when he goes to his quarters and that's when he breaks things because he's failed. Kira's now out of his hands. Not because later in the episode, Worf finds the guy and humiliates him. No, that's the moment he loses it. He goes, he destroys stuff. Quark comes up, gives him the same speech as he did. But Odo picks himself up, goes and finds Worf, does his job, proves that he can do his job well. Worf and him are a great team, and they always will be. That's why they're going to be fun together in the future. And then at the end of the episode, we get Odo not pining after. We shouldn't have him pining.
He's a little wistful about Kira, but there's a new prospect of greater friendships with Quark and Odo, or no, Quark and
Worf.
Worf.
Yeah. And Cisco is like, that's the constable I always knew,
right,
something like that.
And it would have been a great tie-in for Cisco to win the betting pool that Odo would have got.
That's perfect.
That's how you would have betted it.
Yeah,
yes.
and then finally the last moment would have been of Vedic, not Vedic Bareil, Shakar coming out,
First Minister,
and giving his speech, and Odo is standing there proudly in charge of security. He might have failed at his job, but he got his man quickly. He won't let a man out get away. He stands there proudly next to Shakar, and we can see that he glances over at Kira, and we can see he's still pining for her.
A little wistfulness.
Yes, he looks down, he looks away, he looks a little sad, but the episode ends with him standing proudly in his position, doing his job. That's maybe how I would have done it. Of course, I like always having happy endings. That's one of my problems with storytelling. Whenever I try and write stories, is I can't give my characters tragedies, and I can't give them bad endings. And
as you know, I don't have that problem. I love making people have terrible things happen to them.
You and I got to get together and write something, man, because that again is my problem.
Oh man, nothing better to me than to have everybody not just like lose, but lose big. I'm talking scorched earth. Just how far down can I bring you, and then just leave you? I'm just gonna leave you there. Yeah. There's no redemption. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. I mean, there are some shows that have done that, and to speak of that point, I will say, like, if you really want to watch some shows that have some like bittersweet endings to episodes, Farscape, the early '90s sci-fi show, does it better than anybody else. So many of the episodes end with you going, oh my God, like why did you make me care about this character? Like that was their thing a lot. So if you want to hurt yourself a little bit, go and watch it. But yeah, well, any final closing thoughts on Crossfire?
I still think it was a good episode. I still overall thought it was a good one. I think it has some flaws, some things I'm concerned about, and again, if I were to rewrite it, I'd rewrite it a certain way. But that's only after having talked about it for an hour.
Yeah, and that's also we're looking at this from that that 30-year lens, and we've seen so many other shows and movies and sci-fi and everything else, and we're definitely influenced by those things. So I'm still gonna give it to them. I think they put together an overall good episode. Not a personal favorite of mine for the reasons that I've already stated here, but yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say don't watch this one. I'm just saying, for me, these are my hangups.
Right, exactly. But yeah, other than that, looking forward to seeing this develop. I mean, we have so much more to go through. I imagine there's a lot
We
that will
really
happen
do. I
between now
mean,
and the end.
season 4 is just kind of, the crazy tipping point, and we're just getting
Yeah.
into it. That's why I love this season so much. It sets up so many things that we're going to hear about and see develop throughout the next 3 seasons. So
Right.
yeah, for you who's never seen it before, I will say strap in. For everybody else who has seen it, just say keep watching, rewatch with us, and come and
Yeah.
enjoy it. And if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to throw at us that you picked up that maybe we missed or should discuss more, feel free to drop a comment somewhere. You can do it on Facebook. You can do it on the YouTube page. We don't mind. So yeah,
Yeah.
go for it. Just remember, of course, as always, be polite because we'll just delete it if it's not. So that's all. Um,
Yeah.
but as I say every single week, you can find us and follow us anywhere that you do your various social medias, except for Twitter. We still haven't figured that one out yet. So don't blame us. Blame the higher ups who control the Twitter algorithms. In the meantime, you can also listen to us anywhere you listen to podcasts. I happen to do it on Spotify. And until next time, guys, take care of yourselves.
Thanks, guys.